The overseer's staff cracks against the ground beside your head. You don't flinch. You've learned not to. The sun hasn't fully risen and already the canal mud is up to your knees. Somewhere behind you, a boy younger than you collapses face first into the water. Nobody stops digging. This is where it begins. Level 1, the corvée laborer. You are counted, not named. Every flood season, the scribes come through your village with reed tallies, marking who owes labor to the state. You owe 4 months, maybe more if the granary numbers come back short this year. You sleep in a mud-brick barracks with 40 other men, eating bread and onions and thin beer rationed by a supervisor who eats better than you 100 feet away. You carry limestone blocks toward a monument you will never see finished. At night you listen to men talk about escape, about the western desert, about disappearing into nothing, but nobody leaves. There's nowhere to go that Pharaoh's arm doesn't reach. You learn the first rule of this world quickly. Obedience is currency. Complaints get you nothing but a cracked skull. Compliance gets you food, shelter, survival until the flood recedes and you're released back to your fields. You start watching the overseer instead of the block in front of you. You start noticing who he favors. Level 2, the craftsman's apprentice. Someone notices you can carve. A master mason named Senmet pulls you off the labor line after you fix a chipped hieroglyph he was about to discard the whole block over. He doesn't smile, he just says, again, better. You spend 6 years under him, learning the chisel angles for limestone versus granite, learning that a wrong cut on a royal cartouche can mean your hand. You eat in the workers' village at Deir el Medina now, not the barracks, real walls, a door that locks. You start earning grain rations directly, enough to trade for beer, for oil, for small comforts. You marry. You have a daughter. But you also learn the second rule. Skill only protects you as long as you're useful. Senmet once had an apprentice who talked back during a royal inspection. That man is back hauling stone. You keep your opinions in your chest. You keep carving. Level 3, the scribe. The scribal school beats obedience into boys with reed canes and repetition. You are not a boy anymore, but you sit in that same courtyard, copying the same proverb 300 times. The scribe's hand is his fortune. It's true. Once you can read grain accounts, tax rolls, and temple inventories, doors open that were sealed to you before. You're assigned to a regional granary office, tallying harvests, verifying what farmers owe against what they claim they grew. You hold power now, small but real. A farmer bribes you with a goose to shave his tax number down, and you take it because everyone takes it. You start understanding that the numbers you write aren't just numbers. They're who eats this winter and who doesn't. The weight of that sits differently than carrying stone ever did. You stop sleeping as easily. Level 4, the temple priest. The temple recruits you for your literacy, then keeps you for your discretion. You're purified in the sacred lake before dawn. Shaved head to foot. Dressed in linen so fine it feels like nothing at all. You serve the god statue 3 times a day, wash it, dress it, feed it, as if it breathes. Nobody outside the priesthood knows what really happens inside those walls, and that's the point. You start managing temple land, thousands of acres, tenant farmers, granaries stacked floor to ceiling with wheat that technically belongs to a god but functionally belongs to whoever controls the storerooms. You learn the third rule. Information is worth more than gold here. You know which regional governor is skimming. You know which harvest reports were falsified. You say nothing because silence is what buys you a seat at the next table up. Your wife asks why you've become so quiet at home. You don't have an answer that wouldn't frighten her. Level 5, the nomarch's steward. The nomarch, governor of the province, pulls you into his household to manage his estate. You now command real men, overseers of overseers. You settle disputes between villages over water rights, and your word carries the weight of law because the nomarch is too busy at court to hear it himself. You move grain, cattle, and labor across the province like pieces on a board. You also start seeing the cracks. The nomarch complains quietly about Pharaoh's tax demands eating into what should be provincial reserve, and a steward from a neighboring district visits, the conversation drifting toward things that sound less like administration and more like alliance building. You realize you're no longer just managing an estate. You're managing a man's ambitions. You say the right things. You remember everything. Level 6, the royal vizier. The summons comes by royal courier, and there's no version of refusing it. You are made vizier, second only to Pharaoh, responsible for the entire administrative machinery of Egypt. Every gnome's taxes flow through your office. Every major legal dispute reaches your desk before it reaches the throne. You appoint judges. You commission monuments. You decide which famine relief requests get answered this season and which wait. You sit before Pharaoh daily and you learn the fourth rule fast. Agreement is survival, but usefulness is what keeps you breathing after the agreement. A rival vizier from an earlier reign was executed for miscounting the grain reserve during a bad flood year, and you think about him more than you'd like to admit. You stop trusting anyone who compliments you too easily. You stop telling your family what actually happens at court. Level 7, the king's confidant. Pharaoh stops treating you as staff and starts treating you as counsel. You're in the room for succession discussions. You're in the room when foreign tribute is negotiated, when a Nubian campaign is planned, when a rival prince's loyalty is quietly questioned. You hold more real power than most people will ever meet in their lifetime, and almost none of it is visible from outside the palace walls. Your name isn't carved on monuments, Pharaoh's is. You've built alliances across a dozen provinces through decades of careful positioning. Men who owe you, temples who owe you, a network invisible to anyone who isn't inside it. You also know exactly how fast it can end. You watched a fellow confidant vanish from court after backing the wrong heir. Nobody speaks his name anymore. You trust 3 people, maybe 2. The isolation doesn't feel like a cost anymore. It feels like the price of the room you're standing in. Level 8, Pharaoh. You are crowned in Thebes, and from that morning forward, you are not fully human to anyone who sees you. You are the living intermediary between gods and Egypt. Every canal, every harvest, every soldier's life, every stone raised toward the sky answers, eventually, to you. You eat alone. You are dressed by hands that never meet your eyes. Even your closest advisors, the ones you once called by name in another life, now address you through formal titles, their heads lowered. You commission a tomb the size of a small mountain, and you know with total clarity that it is the only room in Egypt where you will ever truly be alone again. Power at this height isn't freedom. It's the absence of anyone left who can tell you no. You think, sometimes, about the mud on your knees in the canal, decades ago, and the boy beside you who collapsed and was never mentioned again. You wonder if he'd recognize you now. You already know he wouldn't. Somewhere south of Thebes, a boy is standing knee-deep in canal mud for the first time, watching an overseer's staff crack against the ground beside another man's head. He thinks this is the worst it will ever get. He doesn't know what waits above him, but he will.